begin with the breaking news. Those images coming in from the Gulf of Mexico tonight, a deadly blast.
Warming seas, giant dredgers, and millions of cubic feet of earth being pulled from the ocean floor. Mexico is literally rewriting geography. In the Gulf of Mexico, there is underway a project of epic proportions, one that could alter not just Yucatan, but world trade as well. But behind the engineering miracle is a greater enigma. What is really propelling this record soil excavation? Is it trade supremacy, political maneuver, or something more grandiose? And at what cost to the environment? The breathtaking responses will make you rethink Mexico's destiny. Yucatan sleeping giant. The Yucatan Peninsula is the most captivating topography on our planet, yet has been portrayed as a paradox, a place of great natural wealth, historical baggage, and unparalleled beauty, but constrained by its own geography. In order to see why Mexico is presently pumping hundreds of millions of cubic feet of soil out of the Gulf, we must first appreciate the Yucatan itself, as the sleeping giant that it is. The origins of this peninsula date back to one of the most cataclysmic occurrences in the history of the Earth. About 66.5 million years ago, a 6-mile-wide asteroid crashed into what is now at the northern tip of the Yucatan. The blast was apocalyptic, producing the Chicxulub crater, a giant wound over 90 miles wide and 12 miles deep, buried under a blanket of limestone and earth. Scientists recognize it as the smoking gun responsible for the extinction of the dinosaurs, paving the way for the mammals, and later the humans, to become masters of the earth. Thus, Yucatan is more than a name on the map. It's the cradle of the modern world. Its very existence is a tale of devastation and rebirth. Jump forward to the modern day, and here stands testimony to nature's comeback on the peninsula. Dense jungles now blanket the ground, providing habitat to jaguars, monkeys, and countless numbers of bird species that could live nowhere else. These below the feeds in synody-appropriate sinkhole formations created when the limestone was dissolved to subterranean rivers, with crystal water connecting these networks. But for the Maya, they were holier-than-thou gates to the underworld. To today's scientists, they are geological marvels providing valuable insights to the climate and history. An almost limitless expanse of radiant white beach sands contradicts turquoise waters, beckoning millions of tourists yearly. But behind the postcard pretty scenery lay an area bound by constraints. The same limestone that allows cenotes to exist is the one that compels large-scale infrastructures to be challenging to construct. Part of the reason why Yucatan was inactive in the maritime field for centuries is that the shallow waters of the Gulf of Mexico hinder modern ships from anchoring in this poor coastal area. So cut off was the Yucatan during centuries, a cultural gem of heritage, but not the trade veins that powered Mexico's other areas. While Veracruz, Manzanillo, and Lázaro Cárdenas were among the strongest ports in the nation, Yucatan remained in stagnation as much as its maritime function. How ironic. Yucatan sits on perhaps the most strategic location in the Western Hemisphere. Almost equidistant between southern U.S. borders, the Caribbean, and Western Europe, that makes it in theory a great logistical hub where vessels meet and commodities travel in all directions. In fact, that promise has largely withered on the vine because of shallow water and antiquated port facilities. So for years now, the Yucatan has been a sleeping giant. Splendid, but unrealized, was its real calling. To planners and economists, the Yucatan was a land purportedly waiting for that single spark, the proper investment. The spark never materialized for decades. All national development schemes were concentrated in central and northern Mexico, where there was industry and infrastructure. The Yucatan became an admired beauty, a mere ornament rather than a player in business. But then came change in 2025, when Mexico finally stirred the Yucatan giant to life with one of its most ambitious projects ever. Trade at a boiling point. If Mexico had ever hesitated at the need to turn the Yucatan into a maritime superpower, recent trade statistics dispelled any such doubt. By 2024, the country achieved a benchmark that amazed even veteran economists. Trade with the United States was at an all-time high of $840 billion. For the second consecutive year, Mexico had surpassed China and Canada to emerge as America's biggest trading partner. It was a figure which not only indicated Mexico's increasing prominence within the global supply chains, but also made us realize the huge strain now put on its infrastructure. The traded goods between the two neighbors are astounding in terms of variety and value. From motor vehicle components, finished cars, and advanced electronics to petroleum, farm products, and consumer products, commerce flows to affect nearly every part of everyday life. Mexico's industrial economy has boomed as businesses move to diversify out of Asia, with a nearshoring strategy that makes Mexico the production line for the North American market. Monterrey, Guadalajara, and Mexico City factories buzz with activity, supplying a trade network that becomes increasingly sophisticated with each passing year. It is not easy, though, to move such commodities as it is to make them. Arteries of commerce today are not highways or planes, but ships, the huge steel monsters that transport most of the world's commerce across seas. They are not the ships of generations past. They have become gigantic engineering models, post-Panamax, new Panamax, container vessels. Some of them are almost 1,200 feet long, 3 football fields combined, and as many as 24,000 containers may be carried at one time. In a single trip by one of these ships, enough merchandise can be carried to occupy an entire city block. These ocean leviathans require behemoth ports. Channels have to be extremely deep, with broad widths and cutting-edge technology to provide a fast turnaround and secure transit. As of today, there are only 5 Mexican ports which have the capacity to hold these massive vessels. Veracruz, Lázaro Cárdenas, and Manzanillo were able to rise to the challenge and are now irreplaceable hubs of international shipping networks. However, glaring by its absence is the Yucatan Peninsula, with all its benefits at the intersection of the Caribbean, Mexico, and transatlantic paths, not part of that club. There's irony in that. Geography gives the Yucatan closeness to Florida, unmediated access to European markets, and a natural entrance to Central America and the Caribbean. But due to shallow coastal water and dilapidated port installations, it has been relegated to the sidelines while this grand trade boom is taking place. This does not even address the consequences of such bottlenecks. In the presence of a megaport providing deep water access, Yucatan's exports would now be shipped through ports like Veracruz, hundreds of miles distant. This adds hours, oftentimes days, to transit time, introduces bloated shipping costs, and reduces the regional producers' competitiveness to global shippers on margins that are very thin and very tight when it comes to delivery schedules. These inefficiencies are more than annoyances.